there's no place to go, so you gotta stay right where you are.
KPFF-LP, Pahrump, Nevada. Statements and opinions made on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its affiliates. Fighting corruption with Anthony Greco. Fighting government corruption, the real gangsters.
Greetings from the corrupt criminal enterprise we know as Nye County. I am Anthony Greco, and this is my program, Fighting Government Corruption. Support for KPFF is brought to you in part by Pure Communications, an internet service provider to Pahrump and the surrounding communities. Pure Communications, 702-628-5662. And our call-in number is 775-751-2579. So before I get on with the show, I'd like to make an announcement. Starting on Sundays at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we are going to have a new show, and it's going to be the history of rock and roll. And every hour, there'll be an hour on every Sunday from 2 to 3. And Dee, the woman who is going to do this, she is going to do the history of rock and roll, one entertainer at a time. So each week she'll be talking about an entertainer or a group of entertainers and their history and how they got started and where they came from. So being that we're a rock and roll radio station and doo-wop, we'll get to know the people that you're listening to and their background and the history on how they got started. I think it'll be pretty interesting, and tune in on Sundays at 2 and check it out. We'll have a good time. So, I hope everybody's Independence Day was good, and I hope we all learned from the speech that Trump gave. To me, it wasn't a campaign speech. He actually gave us the history of the United States of America, and in a very nice way. It wasn't partisan in any way, and it was a good history lesson because not many people know all of this. Actually, Independence Day we're celebrating the Declaration of the 13 United States, which is the document. The document is there. There's no document called the Declaration of Independence. It's what the Declaration of the 13 United States was given to Great Britain, telling them we're declaring our independence, and that was the document's name. So I think that Trump did a nice job doing it. People complained that, he spent millions of dollars, and why not? Everybody promotes a business. Well, why wouldn't we promote the type of government that the founding fathers gave us? The key thing here is, are we going to be able to hold on to it? Okay, so I enjoyed the parade. I didn't see the parade. I don't think it was on TV, but I made sure. I was actually at my friend's house for a barbecue, and it was like 25 to 4, and I said, hey, isn't the president supposed to be talking at 3:30? So we all sat down and watched the speech, and I really enjoyed it. So let's change gears and talk about the earthquake. And the reason why I brought this up is I don't understand people. You see videos, they're running out of buildings screaming and crying and all that stuff. And I'll just give you a little bit of why I don't understand why people do it. Why is the first thing person does is panic? That's the worst thing you can do. You can worry about it after you did what you have to do, but the first thing is everybody's safety. Screaming does not make anything safe. It makes more people go into a panic. And I'll give you, for instance, in 1985, I took my nephew, who was 13 years old at the time, and my cousin, and we went to Washington, D.C. for a 3-day weekend. My nephew was 13. I thought he should see that, and I wasn't there since I was 4, so I wanted to go to Washington, and I took him. And what happened was we were in one of the buildings of the Smithsonian, and the fire alarm started going off, and everybody started screaming. I smelled a little smoke, and people started screaming and running. So I turned around and said to my nephew, I want you to stay between me and Philip, my cousin. And I turned around and told him, we're going to go against the wall. And then we're not going to walk in the crowd. We're going to slide along the wall. That way, if people start banging into us and stuff, we're not going to fall down and trampled on. We could push back because we have the wall to our back. So that's how, and that was, I never went to fire training. It was just an instinct. We could get trampled here. Let's put our backs to the wall and go sideways out of the building. And people were falling on the floor and screaming and yelling. You couldn't hear any direction by anybody because all the people screaming and yelling. And I don't know what's wrong with people. Why do you have to do that? Why do you have to go into panic mode? Don't you have the wherewithal to think about what needs to be done and just do it? The biggest problem in a disastrous situation is the other people. You can get killed by them easier than getting killed by the earthquake if they're running around screaming, banging into each other, tripping, falling. I watch people, they come out of the building, they're throwing themselves on the ground, crying. What's wrong with people? I don't get it. Is it because they're waiting for the government to tell them to get out of the building? I don't know what it is, but where is the common sense of people? Safety is everything. Running and screaming is not safety. So maybe they should have a lesson in school on how to be safe in a natural disaster. That would be a very good class. Matter of fact, I think they should start doing that at the senior center and every school, and just learn how to be safe and how to get out of that situation, so you can figure out what do you do next. Once you're out of the situation, what do you do next? If you want to live without being injured, this is something that people have to think about. It's only common sense and safety, especially when you have children. My main thing was my nephew. He was 13 years old, and I was leading, and he was between me and my cousin. That way, he was protected in every way. If we had to push people off of him, both of us could do it, and he wouldn't have to do anything but try to keep himself up. So people need to start paying attention and stop panicking. It's the biggest problem. I had a heart attack in 2011. I didn't panic. What is panic going to do? It's only going to give me a panic attack. I'm going to have a problem breathing. The best thing to do is just relax and go with it. And I survived. I was probably lucky, but I survived. Don't panic. Learn what to do. That's my lesson for the day. And the funny thing is, a couple of weeks ago I talked about if the power went out. I told my friend Vinny, bring your kids over to the house and shut the power off. And then what happened is 2 days in a row, I think it was about 10 days ago here, we had loss of electricity. So it was the perfect thing. What do? And figure out, you're going to sit there and hope that it's going to go back on. And actually only 93 people, 93 meters were affected, because when I called into Valley Electric, I gave my street address, and they turned around, and a computer turned around and told us what was going on. They said they didn't have a time on when the power would be back on, and they said that 93 meters were affected. So that's just within a couple of blocks of where I live. So it was no big deal. Most people didn't know. A lot of people felt the bump. I called my friend Sonny. He said, I got a bump, but it never went off, and he was only like a half a mile away. So it was a small one. But the main thing is be prepared. Don't open the refrigerator because you don't know how long it's going to be. Make sure you have water, and That's the important part, because you don't know how long it's going to go. Okay, now, we'll get back to the president with his parade and stuff like that. Now, they were making a big deal of it now. They do flyovers at the football games, Super Bowl, World Series. The military does flyovers. Nobody's screaming about that, right? Because Donald Trump didn't do it. See, it doesn't make a difference what this man does, good or bad. He can never get it right according to certain people. And I have 5 pages of a little thing that went on Facebook that I'm going to read to everybody. But I remember in the 60s, when I was a young kid, my father and mother used to take us to Coney Island for 4th of July. And this is before we had a summer house in Pennsylvania, so it was the early 60s. And we used to go to Coney Island and go on the beach for the day and watch the Blue Angels. And they used to do their air show over the ocean at Coney Island every 4th of July. It was great. I remember that. It's over 50 years ago. So talking about Trump and doing the parade and having the flyovers, it's been going on for a very, very long time. Okay, I'm 63, so I was maybe between 5 and 10 when that happened. It's been going on a very long time. It's just that they had nobody to blame, or they weren't so evil against each other. It seems that politics has turned into a very horrible thing, and it shouldn't be that way. Another thing that's going on is Virginia, the home of Thomas Jefferson. Virginia is no longer going to celebrate Thomas Jefferson's birthday because he was a slave owner. So Thomas Jefferson got the boot. So he's out. No more celebration for Thomas Jefferson. Horrible, ain't it? They are trying to take our history away from us. Yes, was slavery a bad thing? Yes, it was. But it was something that happened back then. The country got smarter. We stopped doing that. And the only slaves are now are the taxpayer to the government. So instead of individuals having slaves, the government has all the citizens as slaves, paying taxes for no reason. We had a thing on Facebook about the gasoline shortage in the 70s. And I went into business in 76, and I remember the first year I was in business, what I used to do to get gas was I used to have my tow truck on the back of a line in different gas stations with a sign, last vehicle online, so nobody would line up behind it so there wouldn't be a fight. And that's how I got gas for my truck, so I could be in business. And Jimmy Carter had said that in 10 years we're going to be out of fossil fuel. Well, I think that should have been around 1980. So what really happened? Was that a lie, or was Jimmy Carter prepping us for the global warming story or the Green New Deal? They've been doing that since the 70s. This is not anything new. Okay? They've been lying to us about everything. It's just that simple. So another thing that they're talking about is we should start paying reparations to people that were slaves. And this is on Facebook and everything. Well, when there were slaves, my family was in Italy. So do I have to pay? My people were in Italy. They had nothing to do with slavery. So just because they consider me white, which actually, if certain people don't consider Italians white, think about that one. Okay, certain individuals, like I guess they would call them white Anglo-Saxons, don't consider Italians white. And how I could prove this to you is my friend Vinny from New York. He has a nephew, Ralph, who lives in Tennessee, and he became a cop down there. And his last name is Celentano. So they were calling him Mexican down there. Rednecks were calling him Mexican. He says, I'm not Mexican, I'm Italian. So his boss said, "What's the difference?" So he's trying to say that there's no difference between a Mexican and an Italian, and that's true because we're not considered white. So, do I get reparations because I'm not considered white? I have to look into that. Or maybe we should just forget about it and just be people, citizens of the United States of America, and forget about our horrible past. Not forget about it, just don't make people pay for their past sins. And I don't think there's anybody alive that has anything to do with slavery on either side right now. So what are the reparations for? It's just a way of the progressive socialists to pin us against each other, to make us fight. It's not going to work with me. I'm not going to fight with somebody because they're trying to divide us. I think that we should stand together as citizens and do what's best for our country, even if the politicians don't want to. I talk about Facebook a lot, and on the 21st of June, my page said it was shared 9,000 times. That's pretty cool. I do it, so somebody must be thinking I'm doing something right. So it had 9,000 shares in June, from up until June. So I want to talk a little bit about what happened with a friend of mine that I've been taking back and forth to the doctor. And I was going to touch on this a couple of weeks ago, but I was been so busy I couldn't. There was things to talk about. So my friend calls 911. He's 85. He calls 911. I get woke up at 1:30 in the morning. I see an ambulance out in front of my house, and I know my mother didn't call. So I go out to see what's going on, and I take them back there. And they take him to the hospital. And 45 minutes later, I get a call, "Oh, come and pick him up." He said, "What do you mean? He hasn't been gone for 45 minutes. What do you mean pick him up?" "Well, we did all the tests and we can't find anything wrong." I said, "Well, the guy is 85 years old. Maybe you think you should monitor him until the morning just to make sure he's not having an episode that stopped or anything, or no, come and get him. If you don't want to come and get him, we'll send him home in a cab." I said, "Well, how are you going to send him home in a cab? How's he going to get in the house? He's 85 years old. He's having a problem walking." So I hang up the phone and I just head up there. So I go in the emergency room, and I says, "I'm here to pick up such and such a person." And they says, "Oh, we didn't think you were coming." I said, "Well, you're throwing him out." "Well, we're not throwing him out." I said, "Well, you told me to come and get him. That means you want him out of here." I says, "Don't worry." I says, "Veterans will pay. It was an emergency. They'll pay. And if they don't, I'm saying to myself, they could suck wind for all I care." And all of a sudden, I got nurses coming and looking at me out the window, and I'm just slouching down in a chair, relaxing. So 3 human beings are wheeling him out. 1 female, 1 male, and 1 gender neutral. Okay? Because I say gender neutral because I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. And the gender neutral person's giving me a hard time. And I don't want to cause any kind of problem because they love calling cops and stuff. So I said to my friend, I says, "Next time, if you have a problem, I'll take you to a real hospital." So the gender neutral person starts going off on me. "That's slander." I says, "No." I says, "This hospital is known to let people expire because they don't know what they're doing." "Well, that's slander. I'm going to talk to the CEO of the hospital." I says, "Well, here's my card, and I'm going to be talking about this on 97.7 on Sunday." "Well, I'll make sure the whole hospital is going to listen." I says, "I hope you do." I says, "Because you did not treat this person properly. How could you, from the time he leaves, goes in an ambulance, goes to a hospital, and 45 minutes later, we're all done with him? How could that be? You're trying to tell me on a Saturday night that it's so quiet at that hospital, and you have an 85-year-old man that you did all the tests in less than 45 minutes and called me to come and get him. I says, that's not good service, and that you're slandering us. We'll sue you. I says, do that. It's not a problem. And tell your CEO to listen. And I says, you have my card and you have my name. So the man and the woman weren't saying anything, but the gender neutral person was really not nice to me. Not nice to my friend. As a matter of fact, they were allowing him to get out of the wheelchair to get into the car without locking the wheelchair in place. So I guess the gender neutral person working at our hospital was so angry with me for being a heterosexual male that it didn't do its job properly. So I just wanted to bring that up. So you have my card. If you need to call an attorney and do something about it, do that. What I said has nothing to do with this radio station or anybody who owns it. It's all me. And I'll be happy to see you in court. It's not a problem. So at least Pahrump is keeping updated where we actually have gender neutral people here. I haven't seen the bathroom with 3 figures on it yet that we need to go into. Some of the bathrooms have both figures on it. Either one could use it, but I don't know where the gender neutral go. So we'll have to check into that further. So they were having court. Lane was having a trial here, and I had my press pass on, and I went to sit up in the front, and J-Mel, Lane's bailiff, comes up to me and says, you can't sit here. So I show him my pass, and he says, can I have that? So he takes it, he goes back into Lane's chambers, and of course he comes out and says, the judge says you can't sit here. I said, well, that says media, the pass says media, what part of that don't I fit into? Well, we don't want you to sit here. You can sit anywhere else you want. I said, well, I need to hear what's going on because I want to report on it, on the case on the radio. Well, you can't sit here. But he was nice enough to take me outside. J-Mel was nice enough to take me outside and not scold me in front of the whole crowd. So, and then I was told later on that Lane came out and asked the lawyer and the prosecutor was okay